Hello, everybody. My name is Chaplain Steve McDermott with the 522. I'm here today with Lynn, Bentz, Fontaine from Behavioral Health, and I asked her to come take some time out of her busy schedule to be with us to talk on a series with regards to single soldiers living in the barracks and how they're doing during this time. So, first of all, thank you very much for coming and for taking time out of your schedule. During the restrictions of COVID-19, soldiers in our barracks have been sheltering in place.
Yes.
And we know, I believe that we are made to be a communal people, so having to shelter in place and be isolated somewhat could have the potential of causing some problems. We're all wired differently. We all handle crisis and stress differently. From your perspective, from behavioral health, what are some of the challenges you think single soldiers are facing with these restrictions?
Well, I think the challenges is that boredom, like first and foremost, socially isolating. Boredom has its own kind of problems that go along with it. They have a tendency to kind of try to find things to do. Sometimes those things are not so helpful. I think socially isolating, the communal feel of getting together with friends and chit-chatting about the day and kind of alleviating some of the fears and talking about the news and just kind of not having that togetherness, not having that camaraderie. A lot of people are working in their actual barracks rooms, so there's no dichotomy between where they sleep and where they watch TV and where they're potentially socializing and their work. It's like all in one space.
Yeah. So in that setting, as I said, people react differently. As a priest, I've done so many weddings and funerals, especially funerals. People react to grief differently. I've watched that. As people walk in, I see different reactions all the time, and it never ceases to fascinate me how different we are. How we're wired is how we generally deal with these crises. What are from your foxhole, if you would, using an Army phrase, what are some of the pitfalls, like negative coping mechanisms that people might revert to? Some bad ways that they might be dealing with these isolations?
I think, I have seen kind of from just a baseline level is kind of the decrease in positive coping skills. You can't exercise. You might be oversleeping so that you're staying up super late at night. People are just addictively reading the news, trying to make sense of everything that's going on. So they're kind of constantly got that input of so much news that people are burnt out, and they don't have any kind of space to release all of that energy and all those feelings. And then some people just want to forget, and they don't want to kind of be in the space that they are. So we're seeing even with the restrictions going on, we're seeing a lot of like drinking going on and as just kind of ways to cope, or sleeping too much, or overeating because they're like, I don't know what to do with all these feelings. So those are kind of, and then the avoidance of even connecting with friends. I don't want to call back home because I don't want to know if somebody's sick, and I don't want to know what's going on there because there's nothing I can do, and that feeling of helplessness.
Right.
Yes, which is debilitating for anybody.
One of the times, or I might rephrase this, somebody who's starting to go down that slippery slope.
Yes.
One of the difficult things is they don't realize it until they're going full speed into the wall. Is there anything, like, I think I'm doing healthy, I think I'm adjusting and handling this well, but is there something I myself, thinking I'm doing good, might be questions I might be able to ask myself? What litmus test could I do to say, all right, how am I handling this?
Right.
So maybe I'm not handling something well. So what is there anything? It's hard to do because it's very subjective.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And and I make the joke, like, if somebody is kind of making poor decisions time after time after time, they don't have good friends. Because a good friend would look at you and be like, Take a shower, man.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. Like, you need to go outside and
You need
exercise.
to look at that.
Yeah, you need to look at that. Like, dude, every time we go out, you're drinking too much. Like, if we have good friends, they can tell us and be truth tellers to us. However, it's really hard to be a truth teller to your own life and be that reflective. So I always say, would a reasonable person think that I am engaging in kind of destructive behaviors? You know, I do this with a lot of couples when I see them. I will say, is your behavior conducive for your spouse to be in the room with you? Would you be okay with engaging in this behavior if your spouse was sitting right beside you?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, whoa. Well, if you're doing the wells, then you're probably not engaging in some behaviors. So it's like, who is that really important person in your life who could, you know, kind of be sitting beside you, or you could say, suppose my best friend was sitting beside me and he was looking at what I was doing. Would he say, man, like, turn it around, like, get out of bed, like, you know, go call your mom, call your friend, call your first line, put the bottle down. But what would that, like, really good person in your life say about kind of what you are engaging in? And it's not about shame, and it's not about guilt.
No, it's just accountability.
It's accountability, and it's about, you know, kind of when you don't have that good friend with you to kind of, or spouse or parent or whomever is the most important person in your life isn't there, then sometimes we have to do it ourselves. And then I always kind of advise patients or soldiers, as it is, to go back to basics. You know, are you going to bed at a good time in order to get up at a good time? Are you eating regularly? Are you getting the exercise that you can within the confines of the restriction? You know, do you have a certain routine, or have you not called in? Do you need something to do that's productive? So getting back to routines, asking yourself, would a good friend say that I'm okay with what's going on? Those are kind of and then, or a reasonable person think that what's going on with me is okay.
I like that image of going back to basics. Back in my heyday at Temple University, karate was my life. I lived, breathed, dreamed, slept, everything. Karate was my life. And like any sports player, you go through a rut where you just, like if somebody threw a beach ball at me, I wouldn't be able to block it. I'm like, you know. So your timing's off and on. And I remember it was like, you know, Mr. Miyagi kind of teacher, you know.
Yes.
And at the time, I guess I was a brown belt, and something happened. And he said the same thing, go back to your basics, go back, put back the white belt, put the white belt back on, figuratively, and start basic punching, blocking, and slowly it's in going back to the basics, you find your timing again.
Yes.
And that lesson stuck with me my entire life. So I guess that's a great question. What are the basics that we can go back to? Maybe later, you actually answered my last question in that, so I'm going to kind of just switch up the last thing.
Sure.
You know, I do a lot of ACE training, you know, the suicide prevention. So we talk about suicide prevention, awareness, prevention, intervention. And I do this dichotomy where suicide awareness, for me, I'm always focused on my battle buddy. Because you know, Johnny's here and he's not talking to people. He's always in his room. I always say to the group I'm talking to, is that a bad thing? And they're like, no, we don't know John. Right. I say, you guys know your battle buddies.
Yes.
You have to be the ones looking out to see if you have a radical change in behavior. So that to me was suicide awareness, suicide prevention. Now I'm looking at myself. What are the things I can do? You know, and I remember back in my seminary days, we talk about Pepsi. Physically, emotionally, psychologically, socially, intellectually, and I always add the spiritual.
Absolutely.
Pepsis. And like these are the things like, how am I doing in these different areas of my life? Am I reading? You know, all these different things. And then of course intervention is anybody. But as you're talking, I was thinking about suicide awareness and applying it to this. As a friend, you know, I know my battle buddies, the people I work with, we're on different schedules and things like that. I feel it is extremely important for me at this time, especially, to be looking at my battle buddies, to making sure, checking in on them, knocking on, how you doing? You know, you doing okay? Because and the other thing is, I used to teach high school for 3 years. I taught at a Catholic high school. I taught theology to sophomores, and I asked the kids, if you found out your best friend just got pregnant, is she going to go talk to her parents first? Is she going to talk to her religion teacher first? The guidance counselor, the priest there? Who's she going to talk to first? And we're like, she's going to tell me first.
Yes.
And I'm like, what are you going to say to him? All right. So the same thing with the soldiers. You know, the first one they're going to talk to, they're going to reach out to the battle buddy. And so maybe this is something for people that are listening to this and watching this now. You know, you as a battle buddy have an enormous, a grave responsibility at this, especially this time of these crises. You know, 2020. Oh, what is going on? Crazy time.
Oh my goodness.
We need to be watching out for one another.
Yes.
And it's part of the soldier, the creed, our ethos. I mean, we have to be watching out for each other, whether we're on the battlefield, but most especially in these barracks. And your thoughts on that?
Well put. Yes. Yes. I think the richest kind of experience that I've had as a clinician is the ones where, you know, the battle buddy didn't go all the way up the chain. They just walked their friend over and said, I'm going to sit with you. I'm going to be with you. The other thing I would say is like, don't, and I know that this is kind of diverting a little bit, but don't set other people's limits for them. Allow others to help. If you're kind of carrying something, you would want to help your buddy. Allow your buddy to help you.
Yes, you're right.
You know, we deprive people of so many kind of blessings, so to speak, by not seeking people out.
Yeah.
Like if I need something and it's burdening my heart, and I feel shameful, or I feel like I don't want to bother them, or I don't want to burden them, or whatever. Most people want to help their buddies. They're not friends with people because out of a sense of obligation or anything. They're friends with people because they want to be there and they want to connect with someone. So don't set other people's limits for them. Allow yourself to unburden to others, and in the process, you know, it could be validating for that person because you don't know what they're going through. They might be like, I don't want to burden them either. And in the conversation, you validate each other's feelings and therefore find some relief.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. We have other sessions we're going to be talking about. So please look for them on our page here. And again, God bless you.